funny story. I was in Barnes & Noble. I don't know when Indistractable came out. When did it come out?
2019.
Okay, it was 2019. I was going to say 2019. It was 2019. It was fall. It was a cold day in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. And I saw this book called Indistractable. And I'm an avid reader. I read 4 books a month. Every morning I read at least 25, 30 pages. Very passionate and into personal growth and self-development, self-improvement, love nonfiction. And I picked up Indistractable. I said, this book looks interesting. The cover really stood out, started reading it, and you're going to love me for this, but you're going to hate me for this, and I'll tell you why. So I'm reading the book. I'm like, this is really interesting. I can benefit from this. And obviously everyone else can benefit from it too, but I really like this book. And I sat there and I started reading, and 20 minutes go by and 45 minutes go by, and I'm like,
at
wow,
the Barnes & Noble?
Yeah, at Barnes & Noble. They have couches there, and I'm sitting in Barnes & Noble, and I'm reading your book, and I get up to page like 75. I was like, wow, this book's really good. I'm like, I should buy this book. I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to buy it yet. I'm going to come back tomorrow and read it tomorrow.
No, you didn't.
Wait,
are we recording this?
It is the only book ever in my life that I read in Barnes & Noble from cover to cover to cover. But I'm gonna buy it because I want to support you.
The moment of truth.
Yes,
I'm
gonna buy it. You know what? I'm gonna do it.
You know what? It's okay. You get. There's no law that says you can't read a book cover to cover in a Barnes & Noble. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's a testament to. I'll take the compliment. That's awesome. It was worth the loss of the book sale. The fact that you enjoyed it so much. So thank you for the endorsement. Sorry, Barnes & Noble.
So to everyone that's listening on Spotify and Apple, or if you're watching on YouTube, my guest today is Nir Eyal. Am I saying that correctly?
Perfect.
Nir Eyal, author of Indistractable. Indistractable is a book I read in Barnes & Noble. It's all about, I want to summarize this, but I don't want to step on your toes. It's all about not being distracted by the monotonous daily stuff that we deal with, and not just our phone, but a lot about technology, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is the kind of the challenge of our time that people seem to struggle with quite a bit, is that, our life is on our phone. So, the phone today is not just to make phone calls. Obviously, it's, it's our music library. It's all our podcasts. It's all our contacts. It's our calendar. What can't the phone do? So yes, a lot of it is focused on the phone. But yeah, it's a much bigger aperture than just, getting distracted on social media. It's why don't we do what we say we're going to do in business and in life? How can we stay focused on the things that are actually important?
Amazing. Because we all know what to do. It's not a lack of information. We all have to-do lists. We all have calendars,
and we have the internet to tell us what to do. If you don't know how to do something, right, just look it up. Right? You're absolutely right. It's not that we don't know what to do, because we're drowning in information telling us what to do. It's that we don't actually do it. Right? That it's not an information problem. It's a problem of not following through. It's the fact that we get in our own way. The problem is truly distraction.
Why don't we follow through, and how do we get in our own way?
Okay, so first of all, this is not a new challenge, which is why the book is not just about technology, because it turns out that the Greek philosopher Plato was talking about this challenge of distraction 2,500 years ago, right? He called it akrasia in the Greek, the tendency to do things against our better interests. And that's exactly what we're struggling with. It's knowing we should work out, but we don't. It's knowing we should eat right, but maybe tomorrow. It's knowing that we should be fully present with people we love, knowing that we should do that hard project at work, but we procrastinate. This is part of the human condition. It is not caused by technology. But of course, if you're looking for a distraction, then it is certainly easier than ever to find. And so today, I believe the absolutely critical skill of the century is the power to be indistractable. To control your attention is truly how you control your life.
Yeah. So what are some practices that we can exercise on a daily basis, or habits to build that indistractability?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, let's start with what is distraction. So the best way to really comprehend what is distraction is to know what is the opposite of distraction. The opposite of distraction, if you ask most people, they'll tell you it's focus, but that's not true. That if you look at the origin of the word, the opposite of distraction is not focus. The opposite of distraction is traction. Traction and distraction. Traction is any action that pulls you towards what you say you're going to do, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be hard work. It can be fun stuff, right? Anything you plan to do with your time is traction. As Dorothy Parker said, the time you plan to waste is not wasted time. So whatever it is you say you're going to do with your time in advance, with intent, according to your values, that's traction. Everything else is distraction. Distraction is any action that pulls you away from your goals, further away from your values, further away from becoming the kind of person you want to become. Those are acts of distraction. So we got traction, we got distraction. Now, what prompts us to these actions? First, we have what we call external triggers. External triggers are all the things in your outside environment, the pings, the dings, the rings, the things, all the stuff that makes you, leads you to distraction that's outside of you. Your phone, your kids, your whatever, your boss, any of that stuff can lead you towards distraction. But studies find that's only 10% of the time you get distracted. Are you distracted because of an external trigger? 10%. What's the other 90%? And this answers your question. What's the root cause of the problem? 90% of the time we get distracted, it's not because of what's happening outside of us, but rather it turns out studies find that 90% of distraction begins from within. It's called an internal trigger. An internal trigger is an uncomfortable emotional state that we seek to escape from. Loneliness, fatigue, anxiety, stress, boredom, uncertainty, fatigue, any of these uncomfortable sensations that A players, that high performers leverage that uncomfortable sensation and they use it as rocket fuel to propel them towards traction. What B players and C players, what low performers do is whenever they feel that discomfort, they try and escape it. They try and run from it. So whether it's too much booze, too much news, too much football, too much Facebook, you will always get distracted from one thing or another unless you understand what is the internal trigger you are looking to escape from. So step number one to becoming indistractable is master the internal triggers or they will become your master. And I give you dozens of different things that you can do. You don't have to go see a psychiatrist. There's nothing wrong with seeing a psychiatrist, but you don't have to do that. I'm going to give you tons of techniques in the book that tell you exactly what to do when you feel that discomfort that don't include escaping it with trying to numb ourselves or put our brains in a different place or trying to escape with distraction, but rather harnessing it, using that discomfort as rocket fuel to propel you towards traction. That's step number one, master the internal triggers. Step number two, make time for traction. So you can't call something a distraction unless you know what it distracted you from. Let me say that again. You can't call something a distraction unless you know what it distracted you from. So if you have a big white calendar, right, with plenty of blank space, nothing planned, what exactly did you get distracted from? Everything is a distraction unless you know what you got distracted from. You have to identify this is how I'm going to spend my time. Because if you don't plan your day, somebody's going to plan it for you, right? So you have to plan your day. Having a spontaneous, I'm going to just do whatever I want kind of day, that's for children and retirees, right? If you're not getting done what you say you're going to get done, it's because you're not properly planning your day. And the to-do list, by the way, you touched on to-do lists. To-do lists are one of the worst things you can do for your personal productivity. We can talk about that in a minute if it's interesting. The next step is to hack back the external triggers. So this is when we actually do take a critical look at those 10% of the external triggers, the things that lead us towards distraction from outside. So this is about changing the settings on your phone and your computer. That's kindergarten stuff. Anybody can do that. What about the fact that meetings can be a huge distraction? How much time are we freaking spending on Zoom with pointless discussions that are nothing more than distractions? Email. Oh my God, how much time do we spend on email? How much time do we spend, on roommates can be a distraction. Kids can be a distraction. So I tell you how to hack back all these external triggers. And then finally, the last step to becoming indistractable is to prevent distraction with pacts. A pact is when we make an agreement with ourselves or with somebody else to make sure that as a last line of defense, we don't fall off track. We don't get distracted. So it's really these 4 steps: master internal triggers, make time for traction, hack back the external triggers, and prevent distraction with pacts. This is how we become indistractable.
Amazing. You heard it from the father of Indistractable. You are the father of Indistractable. And that is amazing. So what do you think most people are distracted by?
The internal triggers. It's that actually the root cause of the problem. It's not the proximal cause. The proximal cause, it's like, imagine a game of pool, right? I don't know if do you play pool much?
Absolutely. I'm a good pool player.
Okay, perfect. So the perfect analogy for you. So if I asked you, okay, what makes the cue ball move, right? You could say,
Right.
well, it's
Stick.
it's the stick, right? Well, let's see. Let's take the stick out of the equation. If you remove the stick and you have a player who's really motivated to move the cue ball, what's the player going to do? They're going to find another stick, right? They're going to, whittle one down from bark, right? Like they'll find a way. The root cause of why the ball moved is because of the human being, right? And that's exactly the case when it comes to our tools, distractions, the things in our hands that we think are causing the problem, our cell phones, social media, the television, all these things that we think are distracting us. Those are what we call proximal causes. They're not the root cause. Just like the stick is not is the proximal cause of why the cue ball moves. The root cause is the sensation, is what's going on inside of us.
Uh-huh. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a segue into my next question about how much of this is conscious awareness. Because, for example, as I'm having this conversation with you, I'm being fully present, but even before this conversation, I'm like, what are the things that I'm distracted by? And, I check the price of Bitcoin I check it 20 times a day. I check my stock account 6 times a day. And that's adding no value to my life. I'm not making any trades today. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I don't know how much of it is me being conscious and unconscious. So how much of this do you think is just plain unawareness?
Yeah. So by the way, if a behavior doesn't bother you, right? If it doesn't take away from your life, if it's not distracting you from something else, then it's not necessarily a problem, right? If you're happy with how you're spending your time, your attention, your life, then my book is not the book for you. But if you say to yourself, you know what, I really could be spending that time doing something else. Or there's a problem that we call liminal moments, that when you're between things, right? The time you check your Bitcoin, I'm guessing, is, you just finished a conversation and now you've got 5 minutes before your next, let me check real quick. All right, I just went to the bathroom and while I'm on the can, okay, let me just check the price of the stock market.
Exactly.
It's these moments between moments. And that's not necessarily a bad thing unless it bleeds into the next thing you wanted to do.
Right.
So if you are now spending too much time, now you're not spending 5 seconds, you're spending 5 minutes, 20 minutes, you're researching, you're doing all this stuff. And now, wait a minute, I meant to write, I meant to work on this project, I meant to make sales calls, I meant to call leads, whatever the case might be. Now I'm not doing those things. Now it's a problem. So there's a few things you can do. Number one is to ask yourself, what is the underlying sensation? What are you looking to escape when you check stock prices, Bitcoin, whatever the case might be? I'm guessing, you have an idea?
I was going to say, when you say sensation, is it pain or pleasure? Is that
always pain?
Like that? Always pain. Got it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, every human behavior, everything you do is always motivated by the desire to escape discomfort, even the pursuit of pleasurable sensations, right? The pursuit of wanting to feel good is itself psychologically destabilizing. Wanting, craving, desire, lusting. Love hurts, right? Wanting something is uncomfortable. So everything you do is motivated by pain.
Yeah.
So for many people, it's, boredom. It's I don't want to work on that big project because it's going to be hard. I don't want to make those sales calls because it sucks, right? So that's the first step, is to recognize, okay, what is that sensation? And your brain will trick you. Your brain will tell you, ooh, I really want to know what the stock market is doing, or it's super important that I check the news. Let me worry about somebody's problem, 5,000 miles away from me, so I don't have to think about the stuff going on in my own head, right? The brain will trick you into thinking that you really want it, but really what you're doing is looking for an escape from an internal trigger. So that's the first step. The second step, make time for traction. If you put time in your calendar that you allow yourself to check Bitcoin news, there's nothing wrong with checking what's going on in the stock market or Bitcoin or whatever you like to do with your time and attention. Great. Put it on your calendar. Don't do it as an escape when you can't think of what else to do. Say, I'm going to read up on financial news for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, however time you want, but put it on your schedule. And that actually eases the cognitive burden, because when we go through our day thinking, I really want to know what's happening in the news, I really want to know what's happening on social media, I really want to knowing it's coming can put your mind at ease. Okay. The third step, hack back the external triggers. So do you have external triggers in your environment that are pinging and dinging you, reminding you to do something that you may not want to do at that moment? And so this is where we have to ask this critical question of, is the trigger serving me or am I serving it? So if it's telling you, hey, it's time to go work out, and that's what you want to do, time to call your mom, time to, hang out with your friends, those can be very good external triggers, which is why I'm not anti-tech. You hear a lot of times these people who talk about distraction saying, oh, stop using your phone, stop using social media. I think that's ridiculous. These things can serve us. They're wonderful tools. As long as we don't serve them, they should serve us. So asking yourself that critical question helps you identify which external triggers should I remove and which one should I keep. And then finally, preventing distraction with pacts. So if you make a pact to do a certain thing at a certain time, you can inflict a consequence. Let me give you an example. Many times I work with people who say, I just can't, right? I just can't plan my schedule. It's too rigid. I need to be spontaneous. I just can't do that. Okay, it's who I am. And I said, let me ask you something. If I asked you to plan your calendar for the next week, okay, and stick to it, and I'll pay you $100,000 if you do, are you going to do it? Hell yeah, I'm doing it. Okay, so we've established you can. Now we're just talking about negotiating a price, right? So don't give me this I can't BS. You can. But at what cost will you actually stick to it? So part of making a pact is potentially inflicting some kind of cost or some kind of effort. So for example, hey, you like checking stock prices in Bitcoin. Fantastic. If it's something that you find after you've done the other 3 steps, mastered internal triggers, made time for traction, hacked back the external triggers, and you still do it, you can insert a bit of effort in between you and the behavior you don't want to do. Maybe you remove the stock checking app from your phone. Maybe you say, I'm only going to check it on my laptop. Or there's all kinds of things you can do. I show you in the book to make sure that you can make those pacts so that as a last line of defense, as a firewall against distraction, you put these practices into place. And with those 4 techniques together in concert, you'll lick this for sure.
Amazing. Incredible information. So let me ask you this question. Is it possible to be 100% indistractable?
Yes, because I made up the word so I can define it any way I want. So being indistractable doesn't mean you never get distracted. It's impossible to never be distracted. It's possible to be indistractable. So what's the definition of becoming indistractable? Being indistractable doesn't mean you never get distracted. It means you are the kind of person who strives to do what they say they're going to do. Strives to do what they say they're going to do. So a distractible person keeps getting distracted by the same things again and again. There's a wonderful quote by Paulo Coelho. He said, a mistake repeated more than once is a decision. A mistake repeated more than once is a decision. How many times are we going to complain about social media this and the news that and Twitter that before we freaking do something about it? If you constantly get distracted by the same stupid thing again and again and again, you are choosing to be distractible. An indistractable person says, okay, I see what you did there, distraction. You got me once. You're not going to do it again. So they take steps today to prevent getting distracted tomorrow. That's the difference between a distractible person and an indistractable person.
Unbelievable. So are you, as the father of Indistractable, are you fully indistractable?
Yes. And let me tell you, it has changed every area of my life. I used to be clinically obese. Today I'm 43 years old. I'm not saying this to brag. I don't have good genes. I have a 6-pack. I have 6-pack abs. I've never had 6-pack abs in my life. Why? Do I have good genes? Do I have incredible willpower? No. I used to be very lazy. I still am lazy. I used to be very distracted all the time. I would not do what I say I'm going to do. Why did I do that now? Why am I able to achieve my fitness goals? Because I simply do what I say I'm going to do. I have a better relationship with my family than ever before. I'm fully present when I'm with my daughter. I'm more productive at work. Again, this isn't, this doesn't require willpower. It requires a system. It requires consistency over intensity. That's one of my life mantras. Everything worth having in life requires consistent effort over intensity. What most people do is, I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to make a New Year's resolution. And then they drop out by February, right? People say, I'm going to start a company. And then when the weekend's over, the side hustle is gone, right? I want a good relationship. They take their loved one on a vacation and then that's it, right? These things require consistent action, not short bursts, not, sparks in the pan, flashes in the pan. They require consistent effort. And so that's what becoming indistractable is all about. It's about doing what you will say you will do day after day, month after month, year after year.
Amazing. Couple more questions. I know you're super busy. I don't want to take up too much of your time. How many books did you write before publishing Indistractable?
Oh, just one other book. I wrote a book called Hooked, How to Build Habit-Forming Products.
Amazing. Next question on that one is, I assume, as someone, I am an aspiring writer. I have a goal of writing 500 words a day. And I say, hey, if I can write 500 words a day for 10 years, one of my books will end up being pretty good. I believe that, right?
Totally.
However, I don't follow up on that commitment every day. And there's other more, sometimes I meditate longer or I end up, going for a 6-mile run instead of a 3-mile run. And then I'm like, oh, it's the afternoon and I can't write in the afternoon because I'm not as creative as I am at 5 a.m. And so I assume
Yeah.
that you've been a writer for your entire life, maybe for a while. How consistent are you with writing before your success with Indistractable?
So let me change your mind. I think this is really going to help you. So what I want you to do is to not measure yourself by your output, but by your input. Okay, in all areas of your life. What you just said was, I measure myself based on, did I write 500 words? That's output. This is, by the way, why to-do lists suck, why they don't work, because that's all output. I want to do this. I want to finish this. I want to finish this. I want to finish this. You're tracking yourself by what you finish. Instead, I want you to track yourself by your input. Okay, your input is only two things: your time and your attention. That's all you need to worry about. So what I want you to do, instead of saying, I want to write 500 words a day, and then you have all day to do it, I want you to say, I'm going to sit down at my computer from whatever time, let's say 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., and I am going to write without distraction. I don't care if you write one word. It doesn't matter. I want you to, your only goal is, did I do what I said I was going to do for as long as I said I would without distraction? That's it. And what you will find is that if you do that, if you measure yourself just by the input, did you give it your full attention and the time that you allotted, that's the way you will write consistently in all areas of your life.
Amazing. I love that. And I love how you brought up consistency, because it's something that I talk about a lot to my audience, about just being consistent with health, being consistent with relationships, being consistent about saving, being consistent about all these things, because those small wins executed over time amount to massive results. And
That's right.
It's something that's super important. Nir, is there anything else you wanted to leave the audience with today?
Yeah, I invite you to come check out my blog. I publish a new article every week. So if this is interesting to you, I'm always working on new stuff and exploring different problems that I have and trying to fix them for myself and other people. If other people benefit, that's fantastic too. So please check out my blog. It's called nirandfar.com, and Nir is spelled like my first name. So that's N-I-R andfar.com. So nirandfar.com. And the book is called Indistractable. And you can also get a free 80-page workbook that we couldn't fit into the final edition of the book, so we put it online for free. You can get that at indistractable.com. That's I-N, the word distract, A-B-L-E. So indistractable.com.
Amazing. To all the people that are watching on YouTube, the links will be below to all the resources that he just mentioned. Nir, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hop on the podcast today. Huge fan of your book, Indistractable. And I'm just super grateful for your time. And I'm going to make a commitment to you and to myself that I'm no longer going to focus on the result of 500 words, and I'm going to focus on the input. 20 minutes a day, minimum 20 minutes a day of just phone on the other side of the house, giving my time and attention to what's in front of me. And
love it. But schedule it. Put it. Don't just say sometime today. Put it on, from what time to what time. I love it. You'll see. It'll blow your mind how effective that can be. And 20 minutes is a great start. You don't have to be a hero and do 3 hours. Just start with a small period of time and stop. By the way, one important rule: at the end of those 20 minutes, don't say, "Oh, I'm in the flow. I'm going to keep going." Do whatever's on your calendar next. Stop at the 20 minutes. Even if you've got a bunch of great ideas, stop when you say you will. Because remember, anything else is a distraction. Even if you're writing, if you're not doing the thing you said you were going to do next, now you're distracted, just like you would be if you went on social media. So stick to the schedule.
Amazing. I'll do that. Nir, thank you again so much. Have a wonderful day.
My pleasure.
And we will connect soon.